Well, let's start off another action-packed, thrilling week in the good old US of A here with some 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse and another edition of some really shitty cinemas. Really shitty cinema, actually. Let's take you back, if you really want to go that far back, to 1979. A film called Bog. Basically starring Aldo Ray, Gloria DeHaven, Marshall Thompson, and special guest star Leo Gordon. Okay. Everybody knows what a turd this fucking thing is, and basically the art for the one-sheet poster for its brief theatrical release is a lot better than the movie could ever be. So the whole premise is it's a bog. Now, maybe I'm not really up on my bogs, but to me, bogs are those big, nasty, gushy, swampy fucking areas where there's explosions of fucking, things are rotting underneath and they poof up and stuff, peat bogs and shit like that. So this little idyllic pond ain't really a fucking bog in my estimation, but then again, what the fuck do I know? So it starts off with somebody dynamite fishing, and by that means you light a stick of dynamite, you throw it in, it blows up, the concussion knocks out or kills the fish, you scoop them up, you go home. It's, a lot easier than fucking sitting there waiting with a fucking worm and a hook for something to strike. But anyway, he wakes up this prehistoric creature that was frozen in a glacier under the fucking bog, and of course it takes him out right away. And there's two couples up there, they're gonna camp out and shit, and all of a sudden, this thing from a POV shot takes their wives out. And the fucked up part is, sometimes you see little glimpses of the thing, like a fucking clawed hand and this and that and the other thing, but you never really see the bodies of the victims and how fucked up they are. And add into it, there's a swamp witch, which is actually played by Gloria DeHaven too. She's a dual role. She's some scientist and she's a swamp witch. I hope she got paid a lot for this. But anyway, it's typecasting at its best. Aldo Ray's a sheriff in these things. I mean, he's always been a sheriff in horror movies. Marshall Thompson, who basically can't seem to get out of monster movies because he's been stuck in them since the 50s, like with It the Terror from Beyond Space and First Man into Space and things like that. And I don't even know what Leo Gordon was doing there. Maybe it was a quick payday or something because, he's a heavy and he's playing a scientist. I mean, some people can pull it off. I don't know what the fuck. What do I know, Anyway. This thing's obviously a prehistoric mosquito that somehow they're hinting around that it mated with the swamp witch or something like that, which is kind of fucked up. And it basically kills a deputy. It kills Aldo Ray. It basically shoves its fucking stinger down your throat right into your heart and just sucks all your blood out and shit. So now they figured out that they found a catch of eggs that this thing had, and of course it followed them back to the lab and grabbed them and wrecked the lab and shit. So then they actually capture the beast by luring it out and spraying it with fucking shaving cream. So they bring it back and they keeping it wet and they're doing shit, and all of a sudden, Gloria DeHaven characters there working late at night, and the fucker gets up, crashes through the door, has little claw-like hands and shit like that, but it's got the fucking glued-on eyes that, sort of glow in the dark and shit. So, in other words, it's another man in a suit fucker, and it's carrying Gloria because obviously he's going to fucking mate with her because we found out with humanoids from the deep, that's what these fuckers do. They mate with people. So, anyhow, there's a big pursuit there. They don't want to get into the bog because if it does, it'll happen. And then, of course, the deputy rams it into a tree after it drops Gloria, bursting the car into flames because you got to realize, all these 70s cars, no matter what they hit, they fucking blew up. That's how poorly they were fucking made, it seems. So, anyway, the thing burns to death, and of course we get this under fucking water seascape, of whatever, in somebody's fucking aquarium or their backyard pond or some shit, where you see the eggs and it says the end, ? And thank the Lord that they didn't make another fucking sequel to this damn thing because, the plot is kind of interesting, but it's just so badly played out because you never see the victims actually, if they're, fucked up or not, and you very rarely see the monster. But you see a lot of Aldo Ray posturing and doing things like that, so just weird. And I was watching this thing, because I picked it up cheap. They restored it, some shit can be brought back from the dead and some shit can't. It reminded me of my early days of video peddling because there was only certain shit that was available. For a guy like me who was doing flea markets and shit, where you can only deal with a $10 retail ticket. So I was trying to remember some of these wonderful labels that were on VHS and didn't survive the DVD. One was Air Video for some reason. It had like a fucking lion in a globe in the corner of it. Blood Moon was one of the ones I remember. They did a lot. They had a lot of porn. They put out a lot. It was this whole, 70s storefront features that they rounded up. Maybe, I don't know, about 100, 150 titles, and they just kept basically throwing them on 60-minute blanks and re-releasing them every 6 months with a different title. So Air Video was one of them companies. The only one I remember was Blood Moon. I'm trying to think if they had anything the fuck else. Blood Moon. Then there was Regal. Remember Regal, the clamshells? They had shit they weren't supposed to have, like Brides of the Beast was Brides of Blood. They had Blood Freak. They were the first ones to actually have Blood Freak. They had 3 on a Meat Hook. First ones to have that. It was legit. I think they had a couple Steckler films. Something. Maybe they had the Hollywood Strangler or something. They had a bunch of weird shit that was all cross-referenced, and they had Return of Dr. X, which is, another fucking clunker. And then there was another one. I just remembered this one. Bingo Video. Bingo Video actually had The Return of the Blind Dead as Return of the Evil Dead. They had El Condor, of all movies. They had Pairs the Glory, which might have been the Gatling gun, was retitled. Then they had another one, Pacific Inferno, which was with Richard Jekyll and Jim Brown, and I think that's retitled too. They had a bunch of weird shit. Then there was Neon. Neon had a Point of Terror, that Diane Thorne one. I'm pretty sure they had the Bog too. That was another one. They had the Bog. I'm trying to think what else was on Neon. The Hanged Woman, which was basically Vengeance of the Zombies, which was basically Beyond the Living Dead. Then you had Paragon. Paragon had a real weird pedigree of shit too. They had Night Beast. They had Dr. Butcher M.D. They had The Blind Dead. The fuck else? They had Alien Contamination. And the thing is, I don't know, honestly, whether any of these fucking companies were legit or not. It just seems like, they popped up in the big boxes. TZ Video, what the fuck? Oh, TZ Video or EDDE Video. They actually had the balls to have Zombie. And Mondo Connie 1 and 2. And I believe that, they had Hitler reincarnated as Caligula. Then they had Hitler reincarnated as this one. It was all the Joe D'Amato period pieces that they were fucking around with. That was another one. Star Maker. Star Maker became Anchor Bay. I met the guy who used to own it, Big Al. Another Big Al. This Big Al was 600 pounds of Big Al. They had really shitty boxes. They had some halfway decent titles, but they were sort of edited down and shit. Then there was Video Treasures. Remember Video Treasures? Another wonderful label that had basically a bunch of... They had Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the second speed. They had a bunch of fucked up shit. And the only reason I mentioned the Texas Chainsaw one, because I used to go to the trade shows when they used to have it at the Javits Center. And there was somebody liquidating a whole bunch of videos, and there was like on the list was like 134,000 Texas Chainsaws, and of course it was on Video Treasures, and like I had, what the fuck am I gonna do with that shit? Well, the odd segue is when I was working at Liquidators a few years later, we got in this bunch of really low-end porn tapes, 60-minute tapes, with the explicit, broccoli shot boxes and stuff like that. And people kept returning them saying they were a horror movie. Well, when I peeled back the foil label, guess what? It was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some they forgot to record over. So you never know when that shit would turn up. That and a couple other films were on there. But yeah, there was, like I said, there was a whole laundry list of these, below the radar labels that were getting away with shit for a while. And when I first started out, to offset my porn, I had, outside, I had to have some kind of, regular product, and I used them until, I started hitting all the, the used videos and shit and getting that stuff. But, some of the stuff, that was the only way you could get it. It was, you wanted to see Dr. Butcher, it was Paragon Video. That stuff wound up in video stores, though, Paragon. I don't know who was behind a lot of this stuff. I know there was that whole Thriller video, and they actually had the balls to put out the mottos "Buried Alive" and "Make Them Die Slowly." So you never know. And then the Elvira thing, but they had a bunch of British stuff. I think Charles Band might have been behind that or something. But that's what I really loved about the whole VHS days, because it was really Wild West back then, and all these guys were pulling shit too. I think Magnum was another one. VCA was doing that. I don't know whether they were duping for this Magnum company or was that an offshoot of them, but they had Mad Doctor of Blood Island minus the the opening credits. They had Brain of Blood. They had Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism and some other shit, and they had a bunch of war movies. So, again, don't know the legitimacy of that anyway. So, well, that's our show for today. Big shout out to the Fusebox Show and Grindhouse Releasing. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Above all, stay safe, and we will catch you on the flip side.